Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing great, and here we are back in the AV-8B, the old Harrier, and we're going to be doing some air-to-air refueling, teaching you how to do that. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and just set my livery to what I want it to be, and I'm going to drop my fuel down a little bit just for the sake of the video, so we can refuel a little bit longer. So this is a pretty cool livery, or livery, or whatever you want to call it, but it's got a werewolf on it, so thought that was pretty cool. Alright, let's get this thing fired up. Let's turn on the battery, the APU, crank the engine, turn on my lights, turn on my heads-up displays. Well, actually those are my MFDs. This is the heads-up display. And ensuring we're at 92 RPM, let's introduce throttle. RPM's climbing. Close the canopy. We're going to remove our parking brake. Turning on the display computers, the Mission Computer switch, video recorder on the system display, the ground IR cool switch, setting my INS mode, and I'm going to turn up my heads-up display. There we go. Now we can see things. I'm going to turn on my comms, turn the volumes up, turn the brightness up on the EDP. Set my flares and my expenditures, turn on the RWR, even though we won't really be using it. Set my bingo fuel here. In this instance, I'll just set it for 2000. Turning up the ICS auxiliary and the ground volume knob, turning on my annunciator lights, arming the ejection seat, just in case. And looks like we're pretty square. Alright, so we're going to head over here to TechSkill 11. First we need to check what his TACAN number is and what his frequency is. So it says here, he is 225 and his TACAN is 4x. So we're going to set the frequency for COM1 to 225. And we'll set the TACAN over here to 4. We've got the tone on, it's on X, track receive, and air to air. So over here, the TACAN is now displayed by this little triangular figure. Alright, now we're going to reach out to him for pre-contact. Alright, there you go, we got permission, so we are going for takeoff. Alright, nozzles at 45, flaps all the way down, flaps to auto, nozzles at 10, nozzles neutralized, JPT under 710, and positive climb. I'm just going to head toward this little marker, which is the TACAN, and that's going to take us to where I need to be. The DME here indicates how far away it is. It appears that we're about 12 miles. Not too far. For the sake of this video, I'm actually going to turn on the fuel dump switches, which are directly underneath the fuel pump switches. And my fuel will start to decrease tremendously faster than before. And then by the time we get to the tanker, we'll have a little bit more time for refueling. The best part about the fuel dump switches is that they'll automatically turn off after they have reached bingo fuel level. Yeah, I guess that 12 miles that I anticipated, I was a little bit inaccurate with that. It appears that that was actually 120 miles, so we got a little ways to go. I suppose this would be a good time to teach autopilot as well. For autopilot, you need to make sure that you have these main switches activated, altitude hold switch and the AFC switch. And you want to activate those right when your flight path marker is almost on the horizon, and that's the best way to get it to fly nice and steady. So you turn on the AFC switch, and then you turn on the altitude hold switch, and it'll keep your flight path marker directly where you pointed it, and it'll keep the plane level as well. If you don't have your AFC switch on, and if you don't have the Q fuel and the RPS yaw trim switch on, then it won't stay perfectly level. It might deviate, it might turn left to the right. But this is how you keep it perfectly level. See, once I reach bingo fuel, the pumps turn off, and you can't turn them back on until your bingo fuel level is lower than your current fuel level. Alright, we're approaching the tanker. Actually, that's not even the tanker. I'm still 30 miles away from it, and I'm pretty low of fuel. Let me go over the controls that we'll be using. We'll be using the air refueling probe switch press and the air refueling probe switch toggle in press. Set that to my HOTAS so that I can push one button to make it go out and one button to make it go in. At night, there's a light activated on the frame of the refueling probe, and it allows you to pitch into the basket much easier. So here we are, we're approaching the tanker. You don't really need pedals for this unless it's in extremely high crosswinds, but it's highly unlikely. What I like to do when I'm approaching a tanker is approach from underneath it, because in case I'm going too fast, I can pull the speed brake and use my altitude as a little bit of a brake to decelerate me before I finally meet them. So this is going to be a little bit tricky because we're going to be doing this refueling in a turn. Typically refuelings that are occurring when they're perfectly straight are a little bit easier. But I have to get right into position, and then I'll request pre-contact. Approaching pre-contact, I'm going to make the call. Cleared contact, probe's coming out. And I'm by no means an expert at this, but the lessons and instructions that I can give, which help me, would be to make the smallest movements possible, because the smaller the inputs, the easier it is to fix. Best way to do it is just walk it in, meet the pace, and then slowly increase throttle to a walking speed. So you can just gently guide it in. The movements that occur at the very last second are the most crucial, and they're also the most impacted, because the smallest movements, when you're really close to the basket, can get pretty squirrely. So you need to be very committed and prepared for any vectors that you have to turn into. But that was by no means a swish. That kind of bounced off the basket and ricocheted in. So we're going to try to get it straightforward connection. Nope, not that time. There we go. So once you make the contact, you want to look straight ahead. You want to get a little bit closer to the aircraft, to the refueler. And you want to make sure to keep the probe basically directly behind the refueler. There you go. Even though that was a little bit of a ricochet, still bounced it in there. So there you go. You just about stay this distance away, and you'll be fine. It doesn't make sense. There you go, that was a good contact. Make sure you don't get too squirrely after you link up with it. Very small movements on both the throttle and the stick are exactly the key. Man, I must have barely had any fuel left. This is taking a while for a Harrier. There you go. Topped off at 7,700 pounds, and you retract the probe. Probe's retracted, and there you go. That's how you do some air-to-air refueling. It's all about small, very smooth inputs. It's also the key to wing surfing. Alright, so let's return to the ship. Flaps full, gear down, and we're going to enter a left-hand traffic pattern. Nozzles at 45. Speed brake out. Water on. Nozzles at 99. Throttle rolling in. Keep it in trim with my pedals. Can't tell if I'm a helicopter or a plane. I think the Harrier has identity issues. Doesn't know what it wants to be. But anyway, let's land this thing down over here. So basically we want to keep the witch's hat, which is that little three-pointed symbol, this piece of symbology in the middle of the HUD. We want to keep that between 0 and -5. We also want to keep our flight path marker in between those numbers as well. Otherwise we're descending too quick. The witch's hat basically determines exactly where my nose is pointing. So if it's pointing too far up above 0, then I'm too high alpha. If it's pointing below 5, I'm too low alpha. So if you keep it in between them, then you're good. Flight path marker basically determines when you're hovering whether you're going up or down. When you're flying in forward flight, it obviously determines, well, the same thing, but just a different type of context because you're not flying vertically. So typically in order to do this, my nozzles have to be between 80 to 90. So we got them at 85 right now. I'm going to start trying to descend. Whoa, that was pretty eventful, but we made it. Let's see how we did. Cut the throttle, set the parking brake. And turn off the battery. Well, the nose wheel was almost on the pin, but I'd say that was pretty good. So there you go, we landed on the boat. And that's how you do some air-to-air refueling and vertical landings. Thanks for checking it out, and subscribe if you want to learn more. And as always, have a great time.